I found out my marriage was over when my debit card was declined for a $4 coffee. We weren't rich, but we were stable, or so I thought. I was standing in line at my usual cafe, behind on sleep and halfway through a migraine, when the cashier gave me that awkward smile. "Sorry, it says declined," she whispered, like my dignity could still be salvaged. I laughed it off and used my credit card, pretending it was a tech issue. Deep down, something cracked. By the time I got to my car, my hands were shaking. I opened our banking app, heart racing, only to see it. Our joint account, the one we used for bills, groceries, everything, was at $2.17. Just 3 days earlier, it held over $24,000. I called him, already knowing. He didn't pick up. 10 minutes later, I got a text, just one line. "Good luck without me." We were in the middle of a divorce. Yes, but amicably. Or at least that's what I'd believed. No screaming matches, no custody battles. Just two people growing apart. Or so he said. Apparently he was rehearsing for a different ending. Sat in that car for hours, letting the pieces rearrange themselves in my head. Every sweet goodbye, every calm conversation, all of it fake. He'd played nice just long enough to gut me financially. And I hadn't seen it coming. I wasn't even angry yet. Shock has its own silence. I drove home like a ghost, walked into our apartment, my apartment now, and sat on the couch, still holding my phone like it might buzz with some kind of apology. It didn't. What haunted me most wasn't the money. It was the deliberate cruelty, the cold calculation behind it. He knew exactly what he was doing, and he wanted me to drown. We'd been together 8 years, built a life, shared a bed, a business, a damn dog. Now he was just gone. No warning, no remorse. Just a smirk and a text message and an empty account. I called the bank. They said the transfer was authorized by both parties. Turns out, he'd tricked me into signing something weeks ago. Just for taxes, he'd said. I remembered his hand on mine, his soft voice. The way he'd distracted me with kisses while I signed. I felt sick. He didn't just leave. He planned this. Every move had been choreographed, and I'd danced along, clueless and trusting. I didn't tell anyone for the first 2 days. I was too ashamed. Ashamed of being so naive. Ashamed of still missing him at night, even as my life unraveled. But silence is a liar's best friend. On day 3, I called my best friend, Jess. I didn't even get past "he took everything" before she was at my door, wine in hand, eyes blazing with rage on my behalf. That was the night we made a plan. I wasn't going to cry in the dark while he lived like nothing happened. No. If he wanted me to struggle, he should have remembered. I don't break. I rebuild. And when I'm done, you feel it. Because the thing about hitting rock bottom, there's nowhere to go but up. And I wasn't climbing alone. The next morning, I woke up with a hangover and a mission. Jess had slept over, and I could tell by the way she was pacing in my kitchen that she was already plotting something. "You know what the best revenge is?" she said, sipping her coffee like a villain. "Success and receipts." I laughed for the first time in days. It felt foreign, but good. There's something intoxicating about being underestimated. He thought he'd buried me, but I was a seed, not a corpse. I started small, called our landlord, explained everything. He was surprisingly kind and agreed to remove my ex from the lease. Then I filed a fraud report with the bank. They couldn't reverse the transfer, but they flagged the account. That was step 1. Step 2 was even better. I contacted the accountant we'd used for our small business. Turns out there were discrepancies in last quarter's taxes, ones I hadn't noticed because he handled the books, or rather, manipulated them. Jess said what I didn't want to admit. He's been planning this for months. I started digging, Emails, receipts, Venmo notes, screenshots. Every late-night work call was actually him sending money to someone named Ariel. Every business trip had hotel charges in 2 names. My stomach turned. She wasn't just his mistress. She was his accomplice. The worst part? I remembered her. She'd come to our holiday party last year, said she was a friend from his gym. She'd hugged me, complimented my earrings. I'd offered her wine. I felt like screaming. It was all fake. The marriage, the trust. My entire life had been a stage play written by a narcissist with a god complex. I could have stayed in that pain, curled up with it like a blanket. But instead, I did what he never expected. I fought back. I posted a calm, vague message on Facebook. Life update. Divorce is messy, but I'm learning how strong I really am. Grateful for the real ones. Within hours, old friends and even his family were reaching out. His sister, of all people, called me. We hadn't spoken since the split. She sounded nervous. "I probably shouldn't tell you this," she said, "but he's bragging about wiping you out. He thinks it's funny." That's when something inside me flipped. The pain turned into gasoline. I wasn't going to let this man walk away unscathed. Not legally, not emotionally, not socially. I was done being the nice ex. I'd been quiet long enough, and if he wanted to play dirty, he had no idea who he was dealing with. The next time I saw him, he was grinning like a man who'd just won the lottery. It was accidental, or maybe fate. I was at Trader Joe's, restocking my empty fridge with whatever my remaining credit card limit could allow, when I turned the corner by the frozen foods and nearly dropped my basket. There he was, laughing, with her, Ariel, in my town, holding my ex-husband's hand like she'd just conquered something. Maybe she had. She noticed me first. Her smile faded. She whispered something to him, and he turned, casually. Like he hadn't bankrupted me, like I was just someone he used to know. He smirked. No shame, no guilt, just pure arrogance. "Oh, hey," he said, like we were old high school friends bumping into each other at a reunion. "Didn't expect to see you here." I froze. For a second, I felt 17 again, insecure, small, voiceless. Then something inside me snapped. "Bet you didn't?" I said, locking eyes with him. "Guess stealing my money wasn't enough. Now you're parading your affair around aisle 6? He shrugged. "It's not stealing. You signed the form. You should have read it." That's when Ariel stepped in. "Maybe you should be grateful. He gave you freedom." I think the universe paused for a full second. That sentence hit me like a slap. A girl like you should be grateful. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I smiled. Because I realized something. They weren't smart. They were reckless. And reckless people leave trails. "You know what?" I said, tilting my head. "You're right. Thank you for reminding me exactly who I'm dealing with." Then I walked away. Not because I was defeated, but because I was ready. I called my lawyer. Yes, I'd hired one. Quietly. I didn't go after him in the divorce at first. We agreed on no alimony, no fighting. But now, gloves off, we reopened the case. I showed her everything. The account drain, the tax fraud, the mistress involvement in the business. She nodded slowly, like she was trying not to grin. This just became fun. Meanwhile, I launched my own investigation. Jess helped. We pulled every record, every invoice, every sketchy email. Turns out he'd used our business to fund his affair. Even bought Ariel a necklace using the company card. We built a case brick by brick. I didn't tell him. I let him live in that smug little bubble. He thought I was licking my wounds, but I was building a fire, and he was standing on the matches. 2 weeks after Trader Joe's, he showed up at my door, unannounced, uninvited, and clearly unbothered. I almost didn't answer, but something told me, open it. He stood there like nothing had happened, wearing that smug grin, holding a piece of mail he'd accidentally received. A lame excuse. He just wanted to see me, to rub salt in the wound. "You look good," he said, eyes scanning me like I was still his property. "Surprised you're holding up." I leaned against the door frame. "I'm not just holding up, I'm thriving." He laughed. "Sure you are. That's why your car's gone and you're posting cryptic stuff online like some sad influencer." I could have snapped. But instead, I let silence stretch. Then, did Ariel help you write that line? Or is that pure narcissism? He flinched. For the first time, a crack. I pulled out the folder Jess and I had been building. Thick with printed receipts, screenshots, statements. I watched his smirk twitch. "What's this?" he asked, trying to sound bored. "Evidence," I said sweetly, "of how you used our joint business to fund your little side project, and how you drained our account while pretending we were doing an amicable split." His jaw tightened. "You're bluffing." I stepped closer. "Try me. My lawyer has it all, and she's salivating." He tried to grab the folder, reflexively, like control was still an option. I pulled it back. "Touch anything in my house again, and I'll have a restraining order on your desk before Ariel finishes her next Pilates class." He backed off. "You think a lawyer's gonna scare me? You don't have the money to fight me." That's when I smiled. The kind of smile that terrifies men who think they've won. "I didn't," I said. "But your sister does. She gave me a loan. She's tired of watching you destroy people." The silence that followed was delicious. He stared at me like he'd just seen a ghost. "You talked to my sister?" "Yep," I said, popping the P. "And your mother?" "Guess what? She always liked me more." He turned red. The kind of rage only cowards know. "You're insane." "No," I said calmly. "I'm just done pretending you didn't light my life on fire. Now I'm walking out of the ashes with a flamethrower." I closed the door, in his face. Locked it. Then sank to the floor, shaking, not from fear, but from the rush. It was the first time in months I felt in control. The first time he looked small. He came to burn me down. But he forgot. I was born in the heat. After he left, the silence was deafening. Not peaceful, but buzzing. Like the quiet after a bomb goes off. I curled up on the couch, folder still in my lap, heart pounding from the adrenaline crash. My body was shaking and my eyes burned, but I didn't cry. I couldn't. Not yet. Jess came over an hour later. She took one look at me and dropped everything to wrap me in a hug. "You did it," she whispered. "You finally stood up to him." I wanted to feel proud, victorious. But mostly, I just felt hollow. Because the truth was, I missed the version of him I thought was real. The man who held my hand during my dad's funeral, who brought me soup when I had the flu, who danced with me barefoot in our kitchen. But that man was fiction. And I'd been in love with a ghost. That week was a blur. My lawyer officially reopened the case. We submitted everything: emails, bank transfers, screenshots. She said it was one of the clearest cases of financial abuse she'd ever seen. The legal part gave me structure, focus, something to do. But the emotional mess? That was harder. I couldn't sleep. I'd lie awake replaying every moment, every sign I missed, every time I excused his distance, his little lies. I blamed myself. Deep down, I still thought I should have known better. One night, I found an old voicemail from him. Just a stupid message from when we were happy. His voice sounded soft, warm. "Hey babe, grabbing dinner. Do you want Thai or sushi?" I listened to it 10 times, then deleted it. It felt like killing a version of myself. I started therapy. My therapist was blunt, in the best way. "He didn't just leave you, he dismantled your sense of reality. That's trauma." I nodded, but I didn't fully understand it until I tried dating again. Went on one coffee date, and I was so tense, I flinched when the guy reached for his phone. I wasn't ready, not even close. So I turned inward, focused on the business I'd rebuilt in my name. Started freelancing, networking, learning how to survive without anyone's approval. And slowly, things shifted. I started laughing again. Real laughs, not bitter ones. I danced around the apartment to old Beyoncé songs. I made Sunday dinners for myself and Jess. I even adopted a rescue dog, a scruffy little mutt with trust issues just like me. He never reached out again. Probably too scared, or too arrogant to think I mattered anymore. But I mattered to me. And that was the first real victory. It was a rainy Thursday when the second betrayal found me. Not with a bang, but in a dusty manila envelope. I was sorting through old mail, finally forcing myself to clean out the drawer I'd been avoiding since the divorce. That's when I found it, an unopened letter addressed to both of us, postmarked 5 months before he left. At first, I thought it was junk, but the return address caught my eye. A law office. The name sounded familiar, but I couldn't place it. I opened it out of pure curiosity, and that's when my stomach dropped. It was a letter from an estate lawyer, confirming that my late aunt, who I hadn't spoken to in years, had passed away, and left me $150,000 in a trust. But here's the kicker. The check had already been deposited. By him. I stared at the words like they were written in fire. My breath caught. I flipped the pages, scanned the details, and there it was. He'd forged my signature. Deposited it into a hidden account under his name. He didn't just steal our joint money. He stole my inheritance. I couldn't breathe. My hands went numb. The room tilted. All those weeks I'd spent blaming myself for not seeing it sooner. Turns out, the betrayal went even deeper than I ever imagined. I called my lawyer in a panic. She went silent on the other end, then said one sentence that told me everything I needed to hear. "We're taking him to court, criminal and civil." I hung up and stared at the window. Rain ran down the glass like tears I couldn't cry. All this time, I thought the worst he'd done was abandon me. But no, he'd been stealing from me before the breakup even started. The trust fund was supposed to help me restart. My aunt and I weren't close, but she was one of the few people who ever encouraged me to follow my dreams. I hadn't even known she passed away, and now he'd tainted even that. Jess came over immediately. When I told her, she went pale. "He's not just a narcissist," she whispered. "He's a criminal." We dug deeper, found the hidden account, found receipts. He'd used my inheritance to buy Ariel a car. A car. That was the moment I stopped hoping for justice and started demanding it. I went public. Not just vague Facebook. Posts. I posted the receipts, the screenshots, the evidence. I told my story, not for pity, but to warn other women, and the internet responded. Thousands of shares, messages from strangers, even other women he'd dated. One who said he'd done something similar to her, just not on this scale. He'd been doing this for years, but I was the first one who fought back. And this time, he wasn't getting away. There's something wild about reclaiming your life after someone tried to erase it. It didn't happen all at once. Healing isn't a montage set to indie music. It's a million tiny choices. To get out of bed, to answer the phone, to believe in your own future again. But little by little, I did it. The lawsuit moved forward faster than expected. My lawyer was a beast, Turns out, the forged signature, stolen trust fund, and misuse of business assets added up to something pretty damning. He was facing real charges now. He tried to settle, offered me a chunk of money and a non-disclosure agreement. The old me, the scared me, might have taken it. But I smiled and said, "Tell him to go to hell." Because the money wasn't the point anymore. It was about accountability. About taking back the version of myself he tried to break. In the meantime, the internet had done its thing. My post went viral. I was invited onto a podcast about financial abuse. Then another. Then a women's empowerment panel. I shared everything. Raw, honest, no filters. Women wrote to me daily. "This happened to me too. You gave me the courage to leave." I thought I was alone. For the first time in a long time, I felt useful. I turned the business we once shared into something of my own, rebranded it, reshaped it, took on clients who aligned with my values. It wasn't just about income anymore. It was about identity. Jess was there through it all. She became more than my best friend. She was my co-founder. We ran things together, and for the first time, I actually loved what I did. And somewhere in the middle of all that chaos, I found peace. Not because everything was perfect, but because I stopped blaming myself. I forgave the girl who believed in him, the girl who loved hard and trusted deep. She wasn't weak. She was human. One night, I was closing the shop late when a customer handed me a note. Handwritten, folded. It was from his sister. It read, "Thank you for surviving him. You broke the cycle." I cried in the back room for 20 minutes. Not because I was sad, but because someone saw me and believed me. The pain didn't disappear, but it stopped defining me, and in its place, something better grew. The day we went to court, I wore red. Not because I wanted to look bold, but because I felt bold. He walked in flanked by a tired-looking attorney and a girlfriend who wouldn't make eye contact. Ariel looked smaller than I remembered. Maybe guilt does that to people. Or maybe karma just hits differently under fluorescent lights. He didn't speak to me. Didn't dare. But I watched his hands shake. The case was airtight. My lawyer presented everything with brutal elegance. The forged documents, the diverted funds, the business fraud, every lie, every theft, every manipulative move, exposed under oath. He tried to lie, tried to charm. But you can't gaslight. A courtroom. When the judge ruled in my favor, full restitution, damages, and a formal report to the DA, I didn't cheer. I didn't cry. I just breathed. Deeply. Because for the first time in 2 years, I felt safe. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. One asked me, "What do you want women to learn from your story?" I looked straight into the camera and said, "If someone tries to burn you down, don't just survive. Rebuild in front of them. Make them watch." That clip went viral too. 3 weeks later, I launched a workshop series for women recovering from financial and emotional abuse. We called it Phoenix Rising. It sold out in hours. I used some of the settlement money to fund scholarships. I didn't just rebuild my life. I helped others do the same. One night, as I was closing up after a workshop, I got a message from an unknown number. It read, "You ruined me." I smiled. Because the truth? He ruined himself. All I did was tell the truth. I never replied. I was too busy building a future, one where no woman had to feel what I felt, where no one had to be destroyed in silence. He took everything from me, but he forgot who I was. And now, so does everyone else. Because all they see when they look at me is power.